the goal for today is to make a breakdown, talk about how I made this song. So this is like my last Friday night remix. Unlike other tutorials or other breakdowns, like I'm not gonna go through everything here. I want to go through the parts that were like the biggest breakthrough moments for myself, just so I can kind of document this and, you know, be able to look back on this, see how I made my my song. The first part of my process is I always look for a reference track. And you know, one of my pet peeves now with like anybody that sends me a song and asks for feedback, I always ask for the reference track. But if you don't have one, then I don't really know what the vision is. I'm just going to give you biased opinions on your song. So every single time I make a song, I always have a reference track and I make a note to have one, even if I'm only using like one part of it. So my reference track was this song by two friends. It's cool, 'cause I be looking at you, I think I chose this one because I just saw two friends at Coachella and then also at in Vegas as well. So it was a good song for me to use as a reference. So I wanted kind of like this party energy that came from this. And the first thing I really noticed is like the vocal chops. And then like there's like a really simple bass line with this. So when I had to start this one, the first thing was really figuring out like what's the main thing of the song. And I think that was like one of the biggest problems that I went through in the beginning, where I would produce like random things and or I would have one idea for the verse and then in the drop it'd be completely different. But what I like about my songs is that everything is really simple and there's always like that thing to latch onto, and everything else in the composition really supports that. The thing of this song is this like little bass line here. It's like this percussive bass line. This bass percussion preset inspire. So that's like the main thing, that rhythm. I got it off of like, I think the original has like a bass line that's very similar to that as well. So I kind of based it off of that since it's a remix anyway. And let's see. And then I had like a bass guitar as well. So then with the context here, it sounds like this. So both of them together with the sub. It's pretty nice. Pretty simple. But that's pretty much it. Like it follows, it's kind of like a variation on the original sample. After that, like everything just kind of follows that rhythm. So the next thing the kind of next breakthrough I had was with the vocal chops. I don't know how I stumbled upon this, but vocal chops are really hard for me to figure out. I usually figure them out by accident, but this one actually worked. So this one sounds like this. Just like that. And what I mostly did is like I put this in Fruity Slicer, and I just like the thing about Fruity Slicer is like it's very limited. Like somebody tell me how to fix this, because after 124 it jumps to like 1500, so I don't really know how to get the sounds in between. So these are just the cards that I'm dealt, but I kind of just played around. I honestly don't remember how I got that to this part, like, but it sounds pretty good, right? Catchy. So then I added that with the bass line. And then it goes back into the vocals with like a little stutter in between. The main learning lesson I got from this one though is that the vocal chops and everything else in the drop needs to support the thing. And that's the thing I see other producers like make the mistake of, is like there's so many things in the drop that there's nothing to attach to. So the main thing is that rhythm that the bass line is doing. So I want to make sure the vocal chops are supporting that as well. So yeah, everything else supports, even the chords here, same rhythm. So just make sure that everything supports the main thing, and that's how you can make the song sound really simple but really effective as well. What I did in this really set the precedent for my other songs, but adding these brass impacts, these brass tabs really make a difference. So at first I made the drop and it sounded like this. It just wasn't hitting. So I in the reference there's like the brass tabs kind of like reverses and stuff like that. So I added brass tabs and it just made a whole lot, like it definitely like increased the energy of this song. Something that I was afraid of doing before was copying too much of the reference track, but I think copying too much of the reference track is better than not copying it at all and trying to make it sound so different that your song doesn't even sound good anymore. I tend to stick to the reference that I chose. There's a reason why, and because I kept listening to the reference track, I was like, I need brass, so I added that in, and that made a big difference for that. Also with remixes too, I like to use the original source material. Luckily, for some reason, I think I found this on YouTube, but there's like the Last Friday Night official vocal stems, and they're pretty clear. My favorite part of this song is like the TGIF part. So at first I added it into this build up right here because I wanted it to kind of be like a hype up moment. And it's like everybody cheering at the end or when the drop hits. So it's got like Two Friends vibes, like Galantis vibes. So I wanted to add that, but you can barely hear it there. So I decided to put it in the beginning as well. Kind of like teasing the song before it comes in. There's a stranger in my bed. Also, there's like little ambiances as well right here that I made from the vocal stem itself. So I call this like the Ben.YOUR.FRIEND break because you not only hear it in this song, but you'll hear it in like so many of the other remixes. I kind of like sneak it in there like an Easter egg. But if we listen to this, like kind of like the mid drop fill. Okay. It's kind of like that little pause and the delayed impact. I really like that. And all it really is like adding in a kick on the and of one, like taking out moving it from here to here. And then I like to add this little short drum fill. The reason why I use it all the time is because this is one of the first samples I ever used when I started producing, like the Cashmere sample pack. So I like to always sneak that into my remixes and my songs. So if you hear it, I like, that's what I call like the Ben.YOUR.FRIEND break. And then lastly, biggest learning lesson from this first remix I ever made was mixing. There's a lot of people out there, you know, that say mixing is super important. And there's a lot of people out there that say like, no, mixing is not important. It's all about the composition. And I definitely believe that like the composition is the most important part of this. Like if you don't have good songwriting, mixing is not going to solve your problem. But if you know your song is really simple, you know your song is really good, and you're just not, it's not quite sounding professional. Like for me, I was listening back to the song and I was like, it doesn't have that like professional sound. Why does it sound like amateur? Right? I didn't know what it was, and I realized it's my mixing. And when I talk about mixing, 90% of the time it's just a matter of balancing the volumes. So that's what's really helped me with this song, was balancing the volumes and knowing how to do that. And it's less about knowing how to mix, and it's more about like training your ear nose so that your ear knows what it needs to listen out for. So that was a big learning lesson. I won't go into like any of the mixing that I did here or how I mix yet. Might do that in another one, but mixing is just as important as the composition is. So that's how I made my Last Friday Night remix. I'll include like the zipped project file either in the description, or you can message me on Instagram. I'll be able to send it to you. But I feel like every time I see these like breakdowns of tracks, like sometimes I just want to be able to like have the project and be able to like break it down and look through it myself. So if you download the project, you might not have all of the like plugins and things like that and the same synths, but you can take a look at it however much you have. You can be able to remix this one or be able to take anything from it. So that's what I want to do with these, like give access to the actual project as well.